Oh, hey, King. Long time no see. I heard you were looking for a budget LPVO. Well, look no further. Old Dad's got the answer. Now guys, I gotta talk about my homies, my friends here of the channel, Badlands Munitions. Based right out of Arizona here in the US of A. No foreign manufacturing here. They make quality 5.56 for plinking, match ammo, hunting, and self-defense. They make 9mm for all the same reasons. Whether you're shooting a match, whether you're shooting for self-defense, or you're just wanting to plink some steel with the homies, Badlands Munitions has you covered. With code 110SAS, guys, you get 10% off. 10% off your entire ammo purchase and some of the accessories available on that website. Guys, it's a small business, small batch ammunition with super high quality control. You can't ask for much more than that. It's made in the USA with USA made components. And any chance I get, I'm gonna plug a homie small business. So check them out and get that 10% off you deserve, King. JD's and Lettleman, welcome back to the show, 110 SAS Actual, and this is Budget LPVO Battle Royale. Guys, such an exciting series that we have here. We have gathered the best of the best when it comes to budget LPVOs. Each optic has to be right at that $500 mark. We have gathered the Griffin Armament, SIG, Sauer, Vortex, Primary Arms. We have the Arken, and we have the Swampfox. All of these optics going head to head, and only one can be determined the very best budget LPVO on the market. I'm not gonna lie, guys, this is a super exciting series. It's actually really fun to get these optics that don't cost a bajillion dollars. You know, here's the thing. For too long, it's always been said that, yo, you have to spend $2,000 to get a great optic. You have to spend $1,500 to get a good optic. For far too long, we've been told that. And just out of the sake of curiosity, what if they've always been wrong? What if one of these optics that we have here in the lineup punches above its price range and performs like one of those $1,500 optics? Curiosity killed the cat, so they say, so I don't know what that means to me. Yeah. Anyways, I genuinely think if we can find an optic out there right at that $500 mark and have it perform at a high tier level, it's absolutely worth it. So today's episode, JD's and Lettleman, we have the Primary Arms 1 to 10. I'm super excited about this one. In fact, actually, I have very high hopes for it because a lot of people have great things to say about the Primary Arms optics, especially some of their budget models. They make them all the way from like $400 all the way up to I think like $1,600 to $1,800. For Primary Arms, I feel like $1,800 for their own branded optic is pretty, that's pricey. So that kind of competes with those pretty high tier optics. But they also offer models that are much more affordable, like this one here being right around that $450 mark. I went with the 1 to 10 power because all of these optics are going to be 1 to 8 and 1 to 10. And I feel like that's the most relevant in today for an LPVO. I think that 8 and 10 power gets you that little extra edge over, say, a 1 to 4 or 1 to 6. And it just makes you a much more capable shooter. I know only 2 zooms and 4 zooms may not seem like much, but it's kind of crazy the difference. Even the difference between 8 and 10 power. So let's talk about the Primary Arms. We have a second focal plane reticle, meaning on 1 power, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. The reticle is always going to be the same size, which means on 10 power is where you need to zero this optic. Now, why is that? First focal plane reticles will always have true holds, but on 1 power, 2, and 3, in the lower magnification range, that reticle is going to be very small and essentially just about unusable. You will only be able to really use that reticle until you get to say like 8 power magnification and closer towards that max. Now there's a lot of people who kind of fight in the comments about second focal plane is the best, first focal plane is the best. And to sum it up, in my opinion, you know, I just kind of like to weigh in and kind of give you guys some of my thought process here. On an LPVO, I find that first focal plane doesn't make a tremendous amount of sense. And why is that? Well, it's because I have never needed anything in between base power and max power magnification on an LPVO. I can do everything I need to. Hits 0 to 300 yards on 1 power magnification. If I need to PID and see what I am shooting at, get that positive identification, or I need a more precise point of aim, I'm going to crank the magnification all the way up. That's just how I'm going to use it. And it's going to be the same thing, whether it's first focal plane or second focal plane. Not once have I ever just like gone into a stage on a match or even shooting out at my range and be like, I need 4.2 power magnification. That's the one I need. No, it's either max or 0 for me. Now, when it comes to larger optics, talking like 5s to 25s and stuff like that, I'm always going to pick a first focal plane. Why? Because they have a much larger range. I can actually use 10 power and 12 power on a high-powered magnified optic, something like a 5 to 25, and I can use that reticle because I can see it. The thing of it is, on a second focal plane, you're not going to have accurate holds unless you are shooting on the magnification in which you zeroed it. So on LPVOs, it doesn't really matter to me, to be quite frank with you. I would just pick second focal plane, and that's strictly because they typically have much different glass. What does that mean? Second focal plane is usually going to have much flatter and less fisheye on that base power magnification than a first focal plane. And it's strictly because of how the optic has to be made. I don't want to get too deep into that because, to be quite frank, I am not a rocket optic scientist, but I do know enough to talk about it, but that's about the extent I'd like to go in on it. Now, the 1 power eye box on the primary arms, I like it. It's pretty solid. I will say for a 34mm tube, I was expecting a little bit wider field of view on the 1 power magnification, but it does just fine. I would say it's somewhere right around, I don't know, roughly 100 feet of field of view on the 1 power magnification at 100 yards, which is solid. I mean, that's very, very serviceable. Now on the max power of 10, it gets a little tight, but that's just kind of the nature of the game. Max power on all magnified optics are going to be tighter than the base magnification. It's just science, bro, unless they're doing crazy, I don't know, Martian stuff or whatever. Your field of view is just going to get more constricted when you use max power. They do a pretty decent job at it. I have seen better with the 10 power being a little bit wider field of view. I will say it gathers light pretty well. I think that it stays relatively bright throughout that max range. Some of these optics, when you get them to the max power, they tend to get a little dark and it feels like you're kind of cramped. And you get a little like almost a sense of like claustrophobia, if you will, that it just seems to be constricting your eye. It does pretty well. It transitions light pretty well. I think that it does a very fair job on the max power. Next thing I'd like to talk about is the lume on this optic. I have never in my life seen a magnified optic with more bright lume than this guy right here. It's like nuclear bright. You guys out in the desert, you're probably gonna have to back it down some. It's just like, you crank this thing up and it is like, whoa, like you look through this thing and then close your eyes. Bro, I can see, dude, I'm getting sent to the shadow realm because it looks like I just looked right into the sun. I've never heard of anything too bright of a dot on an optic, but man, this thing pushes it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all. I think it is a fantastic thing because on the brightest of brightest days, you will be able to find that dot. No problem whatsoever. When I looked at their website, I think they call it like a fiber optic dot in there. So it's absolutely crazy. It's so bright. I kind of like it. And what's nice too is you have 1 through 11, meaning you can really dial it in. It's not like it's either nuclear or off. You can dial it into exactly where you need it to be. As far as lume goes on the primary arms, it's outstanding. And again, just dial in it exactly what you want. You don't have to go full nuclear and send your eyes and burn a red dot into your eyeballs, which actually might be kind of helpful, if you never needed optics again, you just like burned a red dot into your eye. I don't know how you'd zero that, but We should be funding that. Anyway, so let's talk about the actual reticle here. I think the reticle's pretty solid. It's very minimalist. So you have all of your MOA marks right there at the bottom post, and then you have your windage as well. I think the reticle is minimalist. It's not like the tactical Christmas tree, which sometimes I do enjoy. It's nice to have your holds plainly stated right there with little dots when you're making wind calls. I think that's pretty solid. But then again, also, I feel like this optic is going to go on a general purpose carbine. So something like a 14.5 or 16-inch 5.56 gun, or like, you know, a 14.5 or 16-inch AR-10. And I feel just the range of those kinds of guns that you're going to put this optic on is going to be right around like that 600, 700, maybe even 800 yard mark for max. Now, typically that means you're going to be shooting much less than that, but it's capable of placing good hits on IPSC targets out to 800 yards. And I feel that you necessarily don't need the super busy tactical Christmas tree in order to make good hits. Now, that's not saying that those don't help, because they definitely do at times. But also, when you're talking an LPVO, sometimes more minimalist is, you know, is helpful. So the reticle, it's solid. Now, let's talk about the turrets on this guy. The turrets aren't exposed, they are capped turrets. So there's basically two ways. There's either exposed turrets, where they're constantly always out, there's no cap or anything to cover them, and there are capped turrets. So I personally don't care for capped turrets, and I'll tell you why. So I like to dial dope often. And why do I like to do that on an LPVO? Well, let's talk about a stage in a rifle match. When you go and shoot a match, typically there's going to be varying distances. So let's say you need to shoot 360 yards, the next target is 550, and the next one is 850. So you're going to run out of MOA or MIL marks on your LPVO at the 850 mark, meaning you would have to guess on that final shot of where you need to hold in order to make a hit. That's not great. Like, you want to make your hits regardless of any situation that you're in. You want your bullet to end up exactly where you want it to. And if you don't dial your dope, that means you are essentially guessing. So when you have capped turrets like this, you can't just make quick calls, and you're not going to be able to see where you're at, because exposed turrets have them very boldly printed on the sides to see where you're at. Now, that's not necessarily important to see exactly where you're at, but it's also nice that I can just pop up off my chin weld and see and verify, okay, yeah, I'm at 3.2 mil. Perfect, great. We're good. Let's go ahead and start this stage. Let's go ahead and rock and roll. With this guy here, I'm going to have to pick up, oh, there's no chance I can see that. I have to look up and see exactly where I'm at. Like, okay, yeah, that, oh, what? Okay, yeah, we're good. Now you can get back on down onto it. So I personally like exposed turrets. It's not a make or break. You can always just zero the rifle and just shoot off your holds. That's more than adequate. The thing of it is if you have to shoot out past that and you run out of holds, you are guessing. And to be quite frank, I think you're going to get, with like a 14.5-inch gun, you're going to get like 550 to 500 yards out of this reticle before you run out. And a 14.5 can shoot further than that. You use it on a 16-inch gun, a 16-inch gun can shoot out to 800 yards. So that's a reason why I really like exposed turrets. So you go up to the stage at 320 yards, I'm going to dial for 320 yards. That's where my zero is going to be. Then I'm going to have a card, a dope card. What is my difference between 320 yards and 550 yards, which is the next target after I engage the 320? Okay, let's say that difference is 2.2 mil. Okay, that's great. So I'm going to put my center reticle, the center dot, right where I want it to hit on the 320. Next, I only have to hold 2.2 mil for that 550. Now the difference between 550 and 800, let's call that 4 mil. Okay, that's perfect, because I now have enough elevation on my reticle left to make that shot with a hold. You can't do that if you don't dial for your first one. And I just genuinely enjoy that. Some people are like, yo, why are you dialing? That's stupid. Like, I mean, if you want to make hits, it's not stupid. So, you know, it's not the end of the world. Again, I don't think you're going to be dialing actually at all with this, because the turrets are just kind of, they're pretty meh. I will say they're very audible clicks, which I do like. You'll be able to hear this. They're very audible clicks. They're a little tight on there. I'm sure they'll loosen up just a little bit over time, but not the end of the world. It's solid, and it makes them very intentional clicks. Now, she is a little beefy, I will say. She's not super heavy, but she's thick. It's a 34 millimeter. It's a little bit long, but it is an LPVO. And if weight is a concern, hit the gym, bro, because we don't care about weight around here. We care about performance. Overall, I have to say it's a pretty solid contender. But the question at hand is this the best budget LPVO on the market? Well, we don't know yet because we haven't put them all head to head. Guys, we still have 2 more to do after this. We have the Arken and we have the Swampfox coming up next. That'll be our last 2 entries. Once those 2 episodes are out, then these optics, all of them are going to go head to head. They're going to be measured directly against each competitor. We're talking the 1 power eye box, the max power eye box. We're going to do the reticles, loom, overall build quality, and so much more. I'm going to get your guys' eyes behind the glass of each optic so you can make your own best educated decision with the help of my guidance. Guys, we have a wrap here, so say it with me. Run your gun and not your mouth. We'll catch you next time.